Good morning, gardening friends. Today is Sunday, April 21st, and it's a cool morning. The cold front has gone through. It did not bring the rain that they said it was going to bring, but it's about 60 degrees this morning, and the sun is out. And I'm having my first cup of coffee out on the deck, looking at my Sarracenias out here. Well, let's go and take a walk around and see what's in bloom and what's happening today. Everything is greening up like crazy. You can see the Virginia creeper on the fence and the progress of my neighbor's construction. I did go ahead and pot up my herbs that I bought last week, and amongst them was the rose-scented geranium, and it's doing well there. I do like the smell of it. It smells exactly like roses. That's why it's called a tar of roses. I think I am going to get rid of that little fern that sprouted up by itself in the pot. But I did notice my plumeria, all tips of it have got some growth. So I'll have to make sure I find its final spot on the deck so I don't move it. I've got my fountains going. The hens and chicks look great in the little strawberry pot. Papyrus is getting taller. I'm about 6 foot tall, and that's about as tall as this particular plume. I did notice over here, well, I hear something, must be anoles jumping in the aspidistra. But I noticed I have violets sprouting down there. If you go back in the videos, I got that tricolored ginger just a couple of months ago and used potting soil in it and put it in this spot, and somehow the violets jumped from that pot into there because they're coming up all over the top of the soil, and I did not plant them. Coleus are doing well. Actually, everything looks good out here on the deck. Even the cyclamen, which they're just about done. However, they still look okay over here. My Nepenthes is still growing. The little pitchers are starting to form. Oh, Miss Mimi is at the back door. Wanted to come out. Good morning, Miss Mimi. For those of you that are new to the channel, that's Miss Mimi. She doesn't come out all that much, so we are blessed with her appearance today. Since Baby has passed away, it's changed the dynamics of the backyard. Baby was my neighbor's cat. And apparently Baby had groupies because there were 2 other cats that came around with her all day, but now that she's gone, they come and they eat and then they go. And they all used to beat up on Mimi, so she feels, I guess she feels more free to come outside now. My bananas are doing well, rising above the aspidistra. The one that snapped a couple of weeks ago in the heavy winds has come back. Leaf is a little deformed because of the being snapped. Let's see, roses are still coming. The first roses are always the biggest of the year. And I do grow these in Zone 9A. These are Oklahoma. They, in the heat of the day, they can go from, barely opening in the morning till evening looking like that. So Right now, because it's a little cooler, they last longer. But typically I cut them and bring them in the house. But since it's a little on the cool side, especially today, they'll do well out here. I have another amaryllis in bloom. And the toad lilies look like they're planted in a line there. They're all lined up in a row. Star jasmine is blooming up a storm here. I think this one's only about 3 years old. What I do is I let it sort of do its own thing till it blooms. And then after it blooms, I'll shear it back to the trellis. Oop, bumped against those. Cycads are really coming out. Got my little fountains on. Oh, and I did notice the bloom stalk on my Pindo Palm. Let me see if I can get around it a little better. It's got another one coming there as well. Pindo Palm is also called a jelly palm. We'll see if everything goes right. Those individual buds, I guess you'd call them, flowers, will turn into fruits. We shall see. Back in here, not too much else has happened. Excuse me. I have a little bit of a tickle in my throat. I'm not coming down with anything. I was cleaning up an althea in the side yard. You'll see it later. And I was carrying stuff to the street and sucked something in. I either breathed in a flower blossom from the ligustrum or else a bug. One way or the other. I've been coughing ever since. You can see my Japanese plums are looking ripe. That one looks riper than the others. Well, had to jostle it free. But loquats are what they're called. Let's see what it tastes like. Oh, it's juicy. They're sweet, and you can tell they have, well, I can't do it with one hand, but they have a bunch of little seeds inside, and the rest of that is edible. Some people peel them. The peel is a little tough. You can buy them in I'll put it down there for the birds. You can buy them in most Asian supermarkets. It's called canned loquats. Of course, they do have a little tinny taste from being in the can. This lady palm does have green at the base, so it did survive the winter. That would have been the first winter for that particular one. That lady palm is probably about 7 or 8 years old, so it did survive. You can see the fresh growth. I will just cut the dead off gradually. I like to leave it on as long as possible if a portion of the leaf is still green, because it's still giving nourishment to the plant. When it totally turns brown, then I'll cut the leaves off. Up in here, other than the story of the loquats, you can see big clusters. I did put some leaf litter down here for my palms. And I did plant up my, oh, there's a spider web here. I don't know if you can see it. I shall skirt around it. I planted vinca in the 4 planters on the wall. And it does pretty well there. My initial intention was to rotate those 4 pots so that they could get different times in the sun, but it turns out vinca does okay, at least in these positions. And I like vinca in these pots because they're way in the back of my beds, and I water them with a hose. And vincas are resilient enough that you can hit them with a thin stream of water and it doesn't bust them up. If you did that with a coleus, it would tear the leaves up. Here you can see the blueberries are coming, as is the nut tree, the pecan. That is 4.5, 5 feet tall to here, and that grew last year. It just shot up out of the ground, and that's what it did in 1 year. These cycads are also sprouting up, and it looks like the monkey grass that I moved a couple of weeks ago has caught. Oh, before I forget, here are the blooms of my Seranoa Repens. It has a bunch of bloom structures. There's one, there's two others. I don't know why, but they often do this. They'll get sort of slimy at the top. I don't know if they're different bloom structures. One may be male, one may be female. But here you can see they just sort of ooze. Don't know what. But that is just what they do. These have never fruited. I had a small one last year fruit on me. But then I've never seen this many blossoms before either, or I guess technically they're not blossoms, inflorescences. But they are just all over this Seranoan Repens. Seranoa Repens. It's also called the, I don't know the common name. Oh, saw palmetto. It's because if you look very closely here, it has little saw-like teeth that will cut you if you brush against them. Back in here, the bottle brush tree is turning colors. The red blossoms are giving way to the orangey bronze color of the new growth. It's another look. And here are the sickeningly sweet star jasmine. These have been in these pots now for, oh, I'll just say over 5 years. I don't move the pots. They've probably gone through and rooted into the ground. More power to them, because that means less watering on my part. Lavender still doing okay, although they're getting shaded out by the flowers. And I'll do the same to these. There is a metal structure in there, and after they're done blooming, I will just shear them right back to the metal structure. And I noticed the agave. You may have heard me once before say that it has probably rooted in the ground. Well, there's proof of it. Gotta be careful I don't poke myself, but there's a little agave coming up at the corner of the base of that. So it has definitely found its way through the drain hole of that pot. Everything is looking lush and green in here. This angel's trumpet is doing well. It's about doubled in height already. I think I'm going to go ahead and try and root it again. Take that particular stalk off, because I noticed the angel's trumpet in the corner by the statue of David. The slugs are getting the better of it, and it looks like it's been et to the ground. So I'll take another cutting, and if it comes back, it can, but then I'll plant this one next to it. I'm showing you also how thick already the holly has grown. Remember, that was cut down to nothing but sticks. It's probably got about 40 years of good roots down there. There's an old flower stalk on another Pindo Palm. They came up too late in the fall to do anything. My Alstroemeria. are starting to bloom again. Those are yet another weed that I have in my yard. I stopped by the side of the road to get those and dug them up and planted them in the far corner of my backyard. And I did not plant them here, but they arrived. So they are invasive, however, they're very easy to control. All you do is snap them off. It's the same as the spiderwort here. Oh, there's another bee. They do like the spiderwort. First thing they do in the morning is work it over. And as soon as that's done blooming, I will snap that off at the base and let the other purple spiderwort take over. Strawberries are still got a few berries here and there. They were good, a little seedy, but good. My ligularia that I just planted is doing well. It's not dying. I consider that doing well. So it at least balances the other ligularia off. I had a small one there, but for some reason it did well up until about a month ago and then almost disappeared. May have been eaten, but in any event, I put another one there, bigger one. Uh-oh. Oh, Miss Mimi's had enough out. Okay, hang on, I'll let you in. Yeah, you had enough out? Okay, go ahead. It's too chilly for her out here. There's an old inflorescence on the windmill palm. Still looks pretty. It looks sort of like coral. I did notice here that my hydrangeas, the Nico Blues, are starting to bloom. That's the first blossom of the year. I do need to clean this up sometime this week, and at some point get to replacing the other wall of the garage. Oh, I see a bunch of more of my horse lubbers, which I shall kill. I shall squish them like the bugs they are when I am not holding the camera. That's the good thing about them, is they cluster like that when they first hatch. Well, potentially this is good news, because I see I put some loquats there and are right next to Godot's water bowl, and something came last night and ate all of them, and the water bowl looks muddy. So that is a good sign that Godot is back. Other signs are the fact that there's a hollow in the monkey grass. So I believe Godot has come back. When I see him, I will do a video on him. He's very elusive. Usually out early in the morning, like now. I do like the amaryllis. This is the only place I have the apple blossom amaryllis. And my daylilies are about ready to bloom. There's where the iachroma came up from last year. It actually survived the cold winter that we had. And this is kind of the plant of the week. My foxgloves are in bloom. Behind it is the Easter lily that I had planted from last year. That one as well. They have buds. They're running a little late. They didn't get the memo that Easter was a couple of weeks ago. Another foxglove. Those I buy every year, so I can't take credit for growing them necessarily. Oh, the African iris. We caught one. We caught them in bloom. It's bright enough for them to be open. It's also called the fortnight lily because they bloom every fortnight or 20 days. Usually the flowers only last a day or two, so we're lucky to actually catch them in blossom. course, the Lenten rose still looks good, even though those are just the leaf bracts. And another cluster of Easter lilies from last year. Let's see, was there anything else here? The mandevilla that I bought last year survived the winter and is looking good. And of course, these are just cuttings I took last year from my spiderwort or wandering dude. It's going to have to switch hands here to open the gate. It's tricky. Have to do two things at once. There we go. Here all is looking well. You can see some spider work coming up between our properties. Pay no attention to the dumpster. It will disappear. Fortunately, it's a construction dumpster, so it doesn't smell. This coleus I had moved from the spot where I planted the, I always want to say trout lily, the toad lily. I did notice on these toad lilies, you see the speckling on the leaves a little better than the ones in the backyard. I think they get slightly more sun exposure. This coleus was looking better. Unfortunately, this week I was trimming the rose of Sharon that used to arch over the walkway, and one of the branches fell and clobbered that particular coleus. It'll come back. You know, that I liked, in the past tense, the drooping nature of the rose of Sharon over my sidewalk, but unfortunately, the two major branches that used to go over the sidewalk for some reason just decided to die last year. So I decided to cut them all back to wherever it was alive, which will now give a chance for this rose of Sharon to grow. This one has been growing painfully slow. It is probably about 4 years in that spot. It's a double white with a little pink in it. So it'll give it a chance to come out. Of course, my little topiary ivies are still doing well. And you can see the nandinas. Someone had asked about nandinas if they were invasive. Well, that's how invasive they are. What I do is I just go through the flower beds about twice a year, which is all it takes, and you cut those out. You could snap them if you catch them at a early enough time, but they will spread. That's probably why they don't sell these nandinas anymore. They get tall, or can get tall. You could keep them at bay by trimming them. All the nandinas that I have came from this one bush, which over 30 years has produced many, many, many offspring, because every one of these little, here's a little teeny tiny one, every one of those will grow to be a big bush if you let it. So it can easily take over this whole side of the house if you let it. Here's where I cleaned the nandinas out of last week. Sort of opened this bed up some. You can see my lemongrass is doing well. It's contained nicely. My Australian tree fern is looking like a tree fern again. Well, I lost 1 bag of leaves and gained 1 bag of trash. I forgot that this Friday was not big trash pickup, so when I cut the Althea down, or Rose of Sharon, I had to do something with all the cutting, so I've got a bag waiting for next Friday. Here you can see this cycad, female. I finally cut the dead leaves off because I saw it has a new sprout coming that was not there a couple of weeks ago. You do have to be careful. They have thorns all over in here, and the thorns have a poison on them, so it feels like a bee sting. It's not the stick of the thorn that causes the pain, it's the little poison that they have on them. Here, all of these amaryllis have seen better days, and now they are being eaten by the dreaded horse lubber, which I think I can get that one. I got him. The horse lovers go for two things when they hatch. They go for amaryllis and they go for daylilies. They'll leave everything else alone and go to those plants to cluster. So it's just constant vigilance. This is what happens if you let them be. They will just eat the leaves to smithereens. The good news is it takes a lot of little ones to do any damage. And if you can get them before they get 4 to 6 inches long, an adult one will eat an entire amaryllis, stalk and all, in one day. So these little guys have a ways to go before they're going to be too dangerous to my plants. My banana's still doing well. Don't know so much about the datura. It got beat up in the rainstorm because it's in the little cleft of the roof and the rains beat it up. Back in here, my 4 o'clocks are growing, stretching towards the sun. And my fig, let's see if it has any little figs in it. I don't see any yet, but it's a little early. A lot of growth, but no fruit yet. I did replace a couple of dead gardenias. 2 here, and I got 4 altogether. There's one over there, and then I planted one where the banana trees are. But everything here is looking good. I did not cut the stalks off of the flowers down there. The hyacinths. They just kind of withered away. And of course the crinum still looks good. Of course the news is the ligustrum is in bloom. Back in here, more amaryllis. The last of the Louisiana iris. And that cycad is sprouting up. I will need to sort of clean through here. There's another Nandina. I did clean this bed over, but the Nandina pops up here and there. The good news is usually the young shoots have that little pink tinge to them, so they're easy to spot. Oh, I was gifted something from the neighborhood again. Just what I needed, a plastic bag. Loquats here are really ripe as well. And I see more indications here. That's another favorite haunt of Godot, is the pile of birdseed. He doesn't eat the birdseed, but that's a deep pile of birdseed, and it has all kinds of bugs underneath it. And I notice another hollow in the monkey grass. So I do believe he is here. Only time will tell. Yeah, this is just pretty much going to be green for the summer. Let me stick this bag in my pocket so I won't be rustling it forever. The loropetalum looks good for just a little punch of color back there. I'm not going to do any major trimming of the camellias this year. I'm going to let them grow, at least at the tops. I may shape them a little, like over here where it's got a clump coming out over the loropetalum. But I want to do minimal pruning this year of my camellias. And the only thing left is the Potager. And it is doing well. I did get a Mexican tarragon. I got a regular tarragon in the backyard that I ordered. I'm pushing it for the growth of it. It's a zone, maximum zone, I think it was 7 or 8. So it may not grow here because of the heats of our winters. However, the Mexican tarragon will. And it may be a perennial. We'll just have to wait and see. I've never grown it before. And that behind it is marjoram that I just planted. I still have my cucumber. Let's see what else. And the Swiss chard is now starting to get a foothold in the ground, and it's starting to show a little. Of course, the dill is growing hand over fist. Oh, the first blossom on the butterfly bush. That's not edible. They were here and I left them. Just about everything else is edible. Well, that geranium isn't. Just about everything else other than those two are edible. Here you can see the dandelions are coming up. I am looking forward to them getting bushier, because if you put them in a flower bed and don't mow them, they'll get really tall. And it looks like something was stepping on my borage. And I do see that something ate my other cucumber that was in the corner there. But despite that, everything else looks good. The cucumber I started from seed. The good thing about cucumbers is in the heat of the summer, which we're not there yet, you can plant them and within about 3 days they'll sprout. But it has to be hot. And, oh, I see something is eating the borage. I'll have to come and put a little neem oil on them. And of course, here's my Thai basil. It's doing well. Let's take a look at the front here at the antirrhinums, or snapdragons. They're approaching their peak. Of course, they were put in last November, and they bloomed then, wintered over, and now are blooming in the spring. Pansies are starting to go by because of the heat. They do have a wonderful fragrance, and actually they are edible. I don't know as if I would eat them, but at least it claims that they're edible on the internet. And here you can see the buds on my opuntia cactus. Yeah, I am looking forward to trying some of the tarragon. What I like to do with it, well, I use it in sauces, mostly gravies, but if I have it. But what I've taken to doing is getting marinated mozzarella balls. They come already in a marinade. It's olive oil with some herbs, and I'll add my own herbs to it to sort of change it up a little. And one of the ones I like to add is tarragon. Tarragon and oregano. And of course, Lord knows I have enough oregano over here. All that creeping stuff here on the corner of the sidewalk is oregano. So, and you can also put lavender in it. It tastes good. I've tried it different times. I don't put them all in at once. And I guess we'll end for the day on this beautiful ligustrum. It's one of the few plants that I am allergic to when it blooms that much. However, it does attract a lot of pollinators. And my crepe myrtle is leafing out nicely. So there you have it for today. I see a bunch of promise. Oh, more than promise. I didn't notice at the very top of the magnolia I have some flowers. I don't know as if you can see them, but I thought they might be ready to bloom. Hopefully you can see them up there. Let's see if I can get it in focus. Should be right about there. And now come to think of it, I do smell a little bit of them. So yeah, the magnolia has started blooming this week. You have to keep your eyes open when you're gardening. You never know what'll surprise you. So with that, I hope you all get out and enjoy your gardens this week, if you can. Hopefully the weather will hold. And I'll see you next week. Take care.